Maria Callas was probably the greatest opera singer that ever lived. Maria's life that was so particular, so tragic, so painful, so enlightening, so beautiful. How can we share all of those elements with an audience through a movie?
My mother made me sing. Onassis forbade me to sing. And now I will sing for myself.
The research was really interesting. As always with Pablo, it begins with us hitting the street, really, and trying to walk the footsteps of Maria. We had access to the Onassis yacht, Christina. It was incredible to sort of walk in the same place, the same spaces, see the sort of the famous Onassis dining room that at one point had been this incredible casino for all these people in sort of the late 50s and early 60s. We also went to the Georges Mandel apartment. It was a sort of a spiritual experience to go to all these places, go to the restaurants and walk around the same streets that Maria had.
What are you watching?
An autobiography. An aria. The third act.
And that's such an important part of the research process. It's kind of unique. Normally there's a lot of sort of searching for photographic material and books and articles and interviews, and we did all of that as well. But I do feel it sort of is more enriching when you can actually go to the spaces as well and see what they're like.
In many ways, the production designer helps you create what the frame will be by the design of the set. You know, for me, the sets all have a certain theatrical quality. We as an audience can never really know everything about Maria. And so I felt the camera partly saw things. We always find her through doorways, windows, and it's always a moving shot to discover her.
Her surroundings were very art-directed. So to find out what her real home was like, beyond that layer of public image, was quite tricky for us. We did have to leave a lot to the imagination. When she looks into the mirror, she's surrounded by this incredible array of artifacts, of ancient artifacts, you know, Greek and Roman. To make those busts damaged in some way, project that idea that she had a very damaged and broken personality in some way.
There's many different textures to the film, and that partly comes out of the way she was so photographed through her life, you know, through Ferruccio, her butler, and through her closest friends in Super 8. And then we have the Super 16 millimeter that's done through the Mandrax that's following her. And then we have the 35 millimeter black and white, which is her memory of her past. And then we have the present in color in 35 millimeter.
In the edit, we found that we could just navigate these different formats with a lot of fluidity and more guided by emotion, more than just a classical structure.
I heard a story once that you burned all your dresses.
I burnt my theatre dresses because they were a part of the past.
We knew that she had over 400 pairs of shoes. We knew that she had over 1,800 dresses. I think she had 80 pairs of silk gloves, for example. So it was a very extensive wardrobe.
E molte altre facevano parte della mia collezione di abiti d'epoca. Io ho un archivio molto grande di abiti d'epoca, di abiti antichi, e li abbiamo usati come set dressing. Ed è stato bello poter ricreare questa stanza dove lei appunto racchiude tutti i suoi sogni e i suoi ricordi. Però l'idea della vestaglia di lana mi è venuta proprio perché volevo che fosse una cosa che la avvolgesse, che la facesse sentire a suo agio in casa. Ed ho usato due tipi di lane, una lana piatta ed una lana cashmere, ed ho fatto una lavorazione 3D in modo che in camera non risultasse piatta la vestaglia.
Every single arrival at an airport for Maria was an excuse to show off another fashion statement.
I just love how she was able to transform herself into all these different looks. She always looked effortless, I felt, and that's something we wanted to recreate. When you have prosthetics applied to a skin and then apply a product over the top, like a paler skin color, which so many times Maria Callas on stage has quite pale skin, but then we had to change back to a young look or to like a natural look, to remove the makeup on top of prosthetics and then basically restart again. And we had counted, we went up to 7 changes in one day.
You know, I remember looking at all those photos, and I mean, her hair was always quite done. It had a beautiful natural wave to it. And I remember, you know, just trying to figure out how to get that wave. I tried several different things because you want it to look natural. So I made rollers out of paper towels and rolled it up at nighttime and then take it down the next day. And that was the wave and that was the curl, the natural look that I felt like emulated what her hair naturally was.
And we had all agreed that we always wanted to find the balance between Angelina and Maria.
There was a real study in only what has to be done. Not to show off makeup, not to do a bunch of tricks to make it obvious, but what has to be done. If you look closely at my face and Maria's face, adjusting the nose slightly, the dark contacts, what does that do? How far did that take us? Taking the hair and adjusting the hairline and some gray, how far does that take us? And we went with the fragility of her pale skin and veins when I was older, and we would then know in comparison to her younger, how simple can it be so it does feel like a real person.
My dream is to see her perform at the amphitheater in Athens. I'm told the acoustics are better than anything in any modern theater.
As an editor, it's great to be able to be in control of the music as much as possible in the process and not just like cut something without music and then see what someone else does with it, because in a musical movie like this, the score plays such an important part.
We used the sort of power and strength of sound to be able to tell the story of cutting between the past and the present. When we hear her in the present day, then obviously we can lean more into Angelina's performance, because her performance gave a kind of an emotionality, a sort of presence to that performance. But then when we go back to the past, it was all about Maria Callas in her prime. You got the feeling of the power of her voice.
All the sound elements that could help were used. And there's a scene when she imagined that it's Onassis' car that is arriving, and then we just have this sound of the car and everything vanishes, and we just keep with her and her memory. So and then the music comes, and it helped to switch to the past.
Excuse me, sir. May I borrow your wife just for a few moments? I think there is a cue.
A lot of the original Maria Callas recordings are kind of in mono, really. So we needed to be able to add another layer to that. So we actually went to Budapest and we recorded again with an orchestra, so that when we would cut to these big scenes, to La Scala and places like that, that we could actually feel as though we were in that room.
And tell me how it felt to be on stage.
An intoxication. Sometimes I thought the stage itself would burn.
When we put together the soundtrack album, we all said we have to have some lines of dialogue, because Angelina's delivery of those lines is just fantastic.
She performed so fully, and I think had such a clear idea of the character that she was portraying and where she was emotionally on each scene. It was just a pleasure to cut.
It's not a dark take on the last days. I think this movie is a celebration of those last days and a celebration of Maria Callas' life.